So let's change it up. Alright, so let's go here. And then we go like that. Alright. Hopefully that worked after a second. Let me make double sure that it does. And then I'm gonna revert it back real quick. Alright, it does. Okay. One moment. Then we can get this new spells tier list out of the way. Alright. Legion TD2 King spells. So obviously, depending on what is going on in the game, what your build is, what your teammates' build is, what the enemy's builds are, can all be variations, which makes this difficult, especially for a big king spell. And there are 2 new ones, but we'll just go with these. So we're just going to try to do as best we can, obviously depending on the entirety of the game. A lot of these can be S and D tier, like just about every tier list ever, but we're going to go just based off consistency, at least as far as me. So all out assault, I think, is probably at least an A. It might be an S, because just getting 100 Mythium, especially that early in the game, is pretty big, and also depending on how much you have saved until then. The problem is it does minus 20 income, which that early in the game, honestly, I feel like is a little bit more hurtful than later. So I think that's why I have to put it in A and not S. But honestly, All Out Assault adding 100 Mythium that early is pretty big. I think it can definitely make some teams leak that early. Allowance I'll give a C. I don't think it's anything crazy. I mean, all it does is give you 100 gold. It's nothing special. It's not really gonna make or break you, I don't think. I mean, maybe might not leak you that early, but probably just that round, honestly. Creditor is just a little inconsistent. I will give it a B, because I think if you can save your money correctly, so what it does is, depending on how much money you don't use in the build phase, you will get more money, spare gold, the next wave, and you can do that, but you can only do it for 3 waves, which I think is another downside to using this. Though I'm sure that if you would be able to do it the entirety of the game after wave 10, obviously, that it would probably cause a lot of issues. A lot of people would just make as much money as they could. Though I don't think it is that great. I think it can be useful sometimes if you feel like you're ahead, or can risk not using your gold. So I think that's a big plus, but you're not going to get that much back either way. And then Dark Ritual, I'm going to put in D. I don't think it is useful at all. I mean, even if you have full king and you damage it by 20%, I don't think that it's worth 135 gold. Like, 135 gold is not that much in this game. That's like one unit that's, you know, relatively low, or it's one upgrade, and again, it's a relatively low upgraded unit, or a couple. So I don't think that for 135 gold, that damaging your king by 20% is really ever worth it. I don't think that even if you're down that bad, I don't think that you damaging the king and getting gold for that is even worth it either. Now, a hindsight to that is that if you do damage the king, at least that damage is not money that the enemy got, technically, for hurting your king. So that's like a little side twist of that, but it's still not really, it's not better either way. It's just do not use it. Even in casual when it's 4v4, I think that's the only thing that is viable. There's technically not any new ones. I just was trying to make a title. I think embargo's A. I don't think I can make it S. The biggest reason why I can't make it S is because I think at sometimes it can hurt you. So what it does is you can't hire mercenaries until after Wave 12 spawns. So you're sitting there not being able to hire mercenaries or king up. But then after that, you get 80 Mythium plus all the Mythium that you have saved up until that point. Because you obviously can't spend it. And then also 80 gold. So I think there's a huge upside to it, but the reason why I can't put it in S is the biggest thing of it can sometimes put you behind or hurt you more depending on when you sent last, and having to then essentially hold on to the Mythium. Giant snails, I don't think they're worth it in my opinion. I think they're probably C, maybe B at best. I mean, you can only place 8 of them, and yeah, 8 giant snails is pretty decent, but I mean, you're going to spend that 160 Mythium on probably any other unit up until that point, and not necessarily 8 giant snails, but I think they can be useful depending on who you're sending to, what you're sending to, and maybe, you know, a wave 12 leak or something, or even 11 just to bother them or something. But I wouldn't necessarily, I think they're just a lot better choices than giant snails. All it does is give them a lot more health, and they are kind of annoying, but again, I think most of the time they just fall off because you want to send 160 Mythium worth of something else, or even just one single unit that would be better. Guardian Angel just revives a single fighter that you want that's on your board, obviously, but they revive with, I think it is like 1,000, let me see, yeah, 1,500 health, so it may be more or less than, you know, however much health they normally have, but I would say it's not going to save you the wave 90% of the time. There are times where it can, and you know, or at least keep you alive long enough to where you can, you know, pro leak or something like that, but I don't think that it's viable enough consistently to use. Hero. Hero's difficult. I think I have to give Hero the nod for S. And the biggest reason why I think is because if you're already using, let's just say, a Butcher for Lifesteal Aura around 6 people, this Hero Aura then gives you damage and defense buff by 5.5% around all of those units as well. So if you put Hero on Butcher, all 6 of those units are then getting lifesteal, damage, and defense, or just any aura, or just anybody that you build. I think having obviously both sides of it, which is damage and defense, added by 5%, which honestly isn't that crazy, but you know, again, 6 units with that much extra damage and defense is pretty solid, and there's no downside to choosing it either, which is why I think another reason why I had to bump it up to S. Definitely A minimum, but I think it deserves a nod to S. Investment, I think investment is pretty solid. I'll give it an A, and the biggest reason why I had to put it in A is because again, that early in the game when it's wave 10/11 going into 11, I think 34 income is a pretty big amount, just straight added, and there's no downside. Do I think it's going to necessarily like win you the game? Like, is it a huge game changer? No, but I think it will. If you feel like you're a little bit behind or something, I feel like this will definitely help you push forward or scale better in the coming waves, if not the rest of the game. So I think it's solid, but I would put it on the lower end of A. Like I would choose these three definitely over investment personally most of the time. But yeah, I would definitely pop that. Let's see what we got. We'll do loan as well since we're talking about that. So I'm gonna do loan honestly in C. So loan gives you 200 gold. The problem is it then minuses 34 income. Now you can obviously make the income back, but I think 200 gold is not it's not a whole lot in this game. Now again, earlier on, sure, but if you minus that income, then that's literally it's almost like it's gold wasted, which is not, but I feel like the downside is just not there. Though sometimes 200 gold that early can be the difference of you placing a solid unit or getting a solid upgrade and starting to clear waves, but it is a huge downside to lose 34 gold or 34 income, sorry, that early in the game. So I don't think it's awful, but I would definitely steer clear from it. It's just not a super solid choice, in my opinion. Lizard Army, I honestly think is probably an S tier thing. Now, the biggest reason why is because it's free sins that you don't have to pay for. So on wave 11 you're sending 1, 12 you get 2, and then 13 you get 3. Now you can obviously send on any of those waves that you wish or none of them. And you don't get income for those sins because they're natural from the king up, but you do get 45 gold on top of just choosing this legion spell. So I think being able to get 45 mythium and then save up or have already saved and then have some free sins with you, though they're lizards and they're not that amazing, still having more units do more damage that early in the game can be pretty nice in at least making them leak. And if they don't leak, hopefully maybe your teammate sent with you and they massive leak, so you got them down to as much as you could. You just gotta, it all kind of depends, but I think it's always a solid choice. There's literally no downside to choosing them. At the worst, you're just getting 45 mythium, and hopefully making them leak or at least sending with them at some point. Magician is interesting. So Magician is an aura effect of gaining mana around the people that you gave, whomever you gave the Magician trait to, or spell to. So it's basically if you use Disciple and upgraded her Stockcaller and she has the aura around the 6 people, that's literally what Magician is, just a worse version. I think I have to put it in B, and the biggest reason why is because one, there's already a unit that can do that, though Magician is technically free, but you're using a Legion spell, so there's hit or miss with that. And then the problem is that you don't always have mana built units. On top of that, you don't necessarily have them all built in an area to where it's viable for you to use this and it work for a lot of units. Obviously up to 6, but where's the line of how many you would rather use for that? So overwork is literally your workers are going to gain Mythium faster for one wave and then slower the next. So I think this is a good way to push if you haven't, but I think the downside is that it's only for one wave and then you're slower the next. So it's not hugely great, but it's not necessarily that bad if you're sending. But I think there can be a downside to being slower one wave if you're not sending then, or didn't send, on top of how much Mythium you had before. So I think it's a little wonky, but it is decent to use sometimes depending on how much Mythium you have. Press the attack, 70 Mythium, period. Nothing different. It's just at the worst, it's a solid choice because you're getting 70 free Mythium, and you can send that whenever you want, depending on when the last time you sent was. Pawn shop. I'll do pawn shop for C. So pawn shop allows you to sell fighters for 90% of what you bought them for, as well as when you choose this you get 80 gold, which is not anything crazy. But I think this is essentially, if you like running Grarl or like having what Grarl does, which is literally this spell of getting 90% of what you paid for him is. I think this is a great way to scale up your team. Sell fighters for almost what you bought them for, which you can't unless it's that wave you'll get full refund, or it's Grarl, then you'll get 90% no matter what time it is in the game. So I think this can be used to be a great way to scale up. The problem is that it's not always viable to sell units to gain units, and if that's all it's doing, it's not that amazing. You should just run Grarl instead. And the 80 gold, again, that little gold in this game is not going to be, it's not going to be the difference at all to me. Venture, I'll go Venture B. So what you do is you pay 105 gold right then, but then at the end of wave 12, you get 315 gold. So you get 3 times the amount that you spent. The reason it's a B and can't really be moved is that it is super depending upon how you're feeling about your team and if you can even do it. The times that I have done it, which is very few, I do feel like it was super helpful if I was ahead, or at least feeling confident that my team will hold or be able to pro league or something of the sort. So I think it has a huge upside, but I think the downside can be not necessarily huge either, but I think it's a little bit more or less consistent. I think it scares a lot of people to spend 100 gold. Again, somewhat that early in the game, like I've been saying this whole time, which it's not that much, but that can be some units or upgrade or something that you could have used for it. So it's a little scary to use, but I would say that it's on the B plus side. There's definitely a good feeling to have. It's just the waiting game of being able, if you think your team can hold long enough. Fighter, or I'm sorry, this is Protector. I'm gonna give Protector S tier. I think this is huge. So what happens is the person that you give this spell to, or trait, whatever you'd like to call it, on your team gains 700 HP. Nothing insane, but then literally everybody else on your board will forever be regenerating 1% of their entire health. And I don't mean forever, but during the waves they are always regenerating 1% of their health. It's not that crazy, just 1%, but still that can keep a lot of people alive, especially, if you're running something like Lifesteal a lot, or you're running Wild Shroom, or some other healing effects. This can definitely just hold down your lane, and keep your team alive and hopefully help you clear. And there's no downside to choosing it, really. I mean, it's just a free 700 health on anybody that you want, and then heals your team during every single wave for the rest of the game. So it's definitely a good choice. Pulverizer as well. I think I have to put an S. So what this does is it gives I'm sorry, I'm trying to read because it's a little different. They've kind of changed the percentages and stuff. So what it does is that it gives someone that you choose it 6% attack speed, which isn't anything crazy, but a percent chance for them to stun the target that they're attacking. So for a regular melee unit or anyone that isn't ranged, it's 34%. Anybody that is a ranged unit, it's 17%. But this thing will literally, if you have like a lifesteal fatalizer, which is upgraded berserker or something, put this thing on him and that dude will stun everybody. Like, that dude attacks so fast already. You're giving him more attack speed and a 34% chance to stun. It's disgusting. So it's definitely, there's no downside to using it. It's only going to help your team and stun targets. And it does stun bosses, but it's a lot less consistent. There's the chance to do it is 0.3, so very small, but possible. And again, I think if you have a berserker, just throw it on him, and you will not be upset. Sacrifice, I think, is also D. So you can literally only refund one single fighter on your team for full value that you paid for them, no matter what, and you get 85 gold. But that is one time. So I actually don't even know if you get 85 gold when you click this, or you get 85 gold when and if you ever refund someone, because I've never used it because it's terrible. There's no point in selling. Every once in a while I want to sell someone, obviously, maybe I messed up my split or it's not going well or something of the sort, but for a Legion spell, just to use that to sell one person for full plus 85 gold whenever you get it, it's just not worth it. I don't see the huge benefit in doing it. Titan gives a fighter 1350 HP. Nothing crazy. I think if you need a little bit more tankiness, or you have insanely massive tank already and you add this, that's just gonna obviously help you, or you have a very good healing team just to hold. It's there, it's solid, no downside to it, but it's nothing crazy in my opinion, but it's solid. I choose it a decent amount of the time depending on what the other two spells are. Villain as well, I think I'm going to give S. So this allows you to, whomever you put this on, whoever they are attacking, they take increased damage from everyone that's attacking that unit, up to 26% and then 13% if it's a ranged unit, and those are both halved against bosses, it says. So literally anybody that one of your units is touching is taking over 25%, 26% more damage from everybody that's attacking that, which is huge. It's a quick killing Legion spell. If you already have a very just attack heavy build, or even if you have a holding build, you're more of just tanky and heals, then this can honestly help as well, because it will allow the tanks to hold down even faster because the unit that it's attacking is dying faster. I think there's no downside to using it. I wouldn't necessarily choose it instead of some of these. I would probably just go with villain every time for the most part, depending on what my team is looking like as well, though. Sorcerer. So Sorcerer I have to put in B as well, and the biggest reason why I can't put it higher, which it probably should be, is that all it does is amplify an ability damage attack by 55%, which is insane, it's huge. The biggest problem is that not everybody on your team will ever have ability attacks like Violet or Zeus or Starcaller, so it's hard to consistently use this, though obviously you're not really going to choose this unless you have one of those people, so when you do choose it or have it available, I would put it minimum A if not S, but I think I have to keep it lower because you can't always use it, or even if you are using it, you might not have the best people to put it on, you know? Zeus is not, he scales off later in the game unless you have multiple of them, but still you can only use one with this. Is it good? Absolutely. Choose it. I would put it, I'll even nod it to A because I think you're not going to choose it unless you have someone, and you almost have someone that has some type of ability damage on your team. The problem is sometimes you don't, and they might not be the best person to give it to, or if you haven't rolled yet, maybe you'll roll into someone that should have had it. Vampire, so this is literally just the Butcher lifesteal, so everybody in this aura is just going to get more lifesteal. I'll give it an A, because if you're not running a Butcher, then this will be better, and I believe actually that this is actually better than Butcher's natural healing. Let me actually double look. Let's see. I can't click on it for some reason. Let's see. Sorry, let me look real quick. So Butcher's natural healing is 20%. So this is more. It's 23. And then the upgraded Butcher does, I think, 30. Yeah. So, but still, if you don't have a Butcher and you need it or whatever, then it is there. Obviously, it's the aura for 6 people around it, so it's more than one Butcher will do, which is good. It's very solid, and again, there's no downside to it. Now, this last one, I purposefully saved it for last because it is scary to face. So it's Savior. So what happens is it will heal your king for 10 to 15% and give you 90 gold. The 90 gold is not the scary part. The 90 gold is, you know, nothing crazy. But the problem is I have faced so many teams that end up coming back because they got and used Savior. It can definitely save your team to then re-heal your king. It might not put you ahead as far as, you know, it doesn't really help your team that much. I mean, you do get the 90 gold, so it will kind of help you in that aspect, but, you know, if you're still going to be leaking, then you'll still just keep losing king health. But this can keep you alive or give you the edge for sure. I have to put it in B because I think on wave 10/11 you might not need it, or it might not even be, you know, have a 10 or 15% less than king full health, or maybe it's just under that and there's better spells that you would rather have. But there's times where, you know, you've been kind of leaking a lot, or they got you with a really good one, even on 10 or something, and you lost a lot of health. That'll just revamp it up and give you some gold, so nothing crazy with that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, again, depending on what you roll, your team, the enemy's team, your teammate, the other Legion spells, and everything like that, all this can be changed around for sure. I'm just going based off most consistency from what I've seen and what's been most helpful that I've seen for my team, my teammates, and that I've played against. You know, some of these things have been very scary to play against for sure, or can be literally game-changing like Savior. So, got to keep that in mind. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys want.